Good Wednesday to you, everybody in Com 731. Welcome to week. Are you ready for this? Boom, bam, 13 weeks. We are motoring along, and you are doing just fine, okay? Let's get this video started correctly. Much better. Now, I am your sufficiently caffeinated communication instructor. Good week to you. How's everybody doing? Okay? We're actually nearing the end of our readings, because normally I don't assign readings in week 15 or week 16 because I want to give you the opportunity to finish up your papers, get ready for the exam, all that sort of stuff. So we're really sort of coming down to it. Okay. So this video, we're going to talk a little bit about this week, and then we'll look at your answers from last week and still see what we can fill in to sort of round out the readings and the experience. Okay. We're going to continue our work in Neff and Moss's book, Future of Not-for-Profits. Again, a book that I really like. It's been out for a bit. What was it? 2012, 2011, actually. But the fundamentals have held. Okay. So chapters 5 through 7 for this week. All right. A couple of reminders. You need to be working on your papers. Where are we at? We're about midway through November. Okay. So today's the 13th. And your papers are due on December the 4th. So you need to have those done. If you have any questions about it, and some of you that you saw my video about IDP and how that's changed, and you need to reach out to me. And there are those of you who did, and that's good. If you, for any reason, are among those who have not, please reach out to me, and we will get you fixed up. Okay. So in the syllabus, if you look at the syllabus, it says that the final paper is due on December the 2nd. And I had some folks ask me about maybe pushing that date around, and I said, yeah, fine. But that basically moves it from the beginning of the week, which is Monday, to about the mid of the week, which is like Thursday, mid-ish of the week. Okay. Likewise, what we'll do with the final exam is we're going to open it up on that Friday. That will be the 6th. And you need to have it in the can before close of business on the 7th. So if you're looking at the syllabus and tracking as we're winding down in the last few weeks, just slight adjustments, okay? But basically everything's the same. Okay, so let's take a look at the questions from last week, what you said, what we might be able to say to flesh it out, okay, and add to the readings. Question number 1, what is the shift that changed local fundraising forever? Do you see evidence of this in the place where you work or live? This was a bit of a trick question. Some of you said, well, it was technology. It was this, it was that. Okay, yeah, that's true. That came and that changed fundraising. But the major shift, as Neff and Moss points out, is as follows. Michael, let's go to you. According to the authors, what changed local fundraising was the shift from 1-income families to 2 before the shift post-World War II America. Women primarily operated in their homes and communities, which allowed for reliance on these close-knit relationships for fundraising efforts. Absolutely true. There's some interesting scholarship and opinions developing about the role of women in organizing society. And there's a book I want to recommend to you on that topic. Now, I'll tell you before I recommend the book, the focus of this book is not women and their organizing and fundraising. Okay, that's not what's going on. But the author of the book does touch on how it is that the work roles of both men and women evolved from an agricultural age, that is when, most things in the West were subsistence farming, to industrial revolution age, to post-industrial revolution age, to modernity, and how the changes in the economic structure brought changes in the organizational structure relative to men and women, brought changes in the social output structure. Okay. And as part of that is a brief history within this book of how it is that post-industrial revolution, there was a rise in the number of women, and the Marxist term is the bourgeoisie class, who very deliberately focused on organizing the home and then organizing society based along the same lines and principles. And it's not a coincidence that some of the major reforms, I would argue the three greatest major social reforms for the United States, and the fourth perhaps being civil rights, the three greatest were organized by women who living in close-knit communities in homes, were able to get together and begin the push for these organizations. And the top three, and then civil rights comes, but the top three are abolition of slavery, temperance, that is, not just the passing of the prohibition, not just the passing of the amendment, but the general push that consumption of alcohol or any, mind-altering, mood-altering substance wasn't such a good idea. And then universal suffrage vote. Okay. And if you read the writers who were women concerning these three major social shifts in American history, they're very forthright. They're very plain spoken about how it is that they see the paradigm, the pattern. I don't like that word so much because it's so misused, paradigm. The pattern for social reorganization, and they base it on structures that they see within their own home, and then within their connected homes in their community. Okay, so the book, to get to the book, you're like, okay, but what's the book? It's called, and I only have copy on my Kindle, which I normally don't. I don't read a lot of Kindle books unless we're talking about manuals, like how to operate your dishwasher or whatever, because I like to talk back to my books. I'm always writing notes in there and stuff. Harder to do. Yes, I know you can do digital notes on the Kindle. I understand all that. Okay. Anyway, the book is by the British writer, intellectual Mary Harrington, and the book is called Feminism Against Progress. If you haven't read it, and even as communication majors, and especially in strategic communication, I strongly recommend that you do. And for strategic communication majors, Mary Harrington rightly points out that, and this is, from a Christian worldview, what we're up to here at Regent. If you believe, as I do, I'm not saying, as you believe as I do, but I'm going to believe what I just tell you. That, the notion that someone can change their gender by simply imagining is not well grounded in physical reality, which it is not. And this doesn't mean, you got to be very careful, because now I know I'm on a slight tangent here, the not-for-profits, but this is an important point. And by the way, when I go out into my opinion, as opposed to what I can point to by way of research, I'm going to tell you. So you can feel free to go, yeah, I don't agree with that. And that's fine. Okay. So my opinion, all right, that as Christians, we've gotten a couple of things wrong concerning those that have issues with both their sex and their attraction to opposite sex. And here is the two things. Number one, because someone has a particular perspective, struggles with same-sex attraction, has, and the technical term is gender dysphoria, feel there's a mismatch between the psychological self and the physical self. Okay. That is no justification for treating that person less than fully human. I mean, that's the rough equivalent is if someone was born missing an arm, that they're not fully human, which simply is just not true. The totality of who we are is much, much larger than any one constituent part or any expression. And so I believe, again, this is my opinion, I believe we got that wrong. Okay, societal wide and as Christians. It's tough. It's interesting because when you're reading the Gospel of Matthew, and specifically in the discourse on the bread of life, it's there that you get the passage. This is a hard saying about I am the bread of life. I am the manna that comes down from heaven. You eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, or you have no life in you. Okay, and the crowd responds by saying, "This is a hard saying. Who can believe this?" You know what is a harder saying? Is again to the Gospel of Matthew when the scribe is trying to trick Jesus. Is hey, what is the greatest of the commandments? This is a setup. Because under the Levitican laws, there is no greater or lesser. They're all to be obeyed. And if you look at the commandments, you'll see that they're broken into two categories, roughly 40 and 60%. The first 4 of the 10 speak about the relationship of us to the Creator. The other 6 of the 10 speak about the relationship between us and us, the created and the created. Okay. And, I'm not going to rattle them up, but read the commandments and you'll immediately, if that's never occurred to you, read the commandments and you'll see it. So Jesus says, he's getting set up and he says, okay. So the greatest of the commandments are these: love your God with all your heart and soul and love your neighbor as yourself. That's a hard saying. To love your neighbor as yourself. And in effect, what he's doing, by the way, is he's taking those 4 and putting them into one category and those 6 and putting them into another category, saying that this is how you could shrink those down. Okay. So we've not done a good job of that. And it's led to a lot of problems. That was the first thing. Now, the second thing that we've done that's a mistake is to simply say, okay, this is just normal, and this is just like anybody who has blonde hair, brown hair, or black hair. Okay, within the scope of human behavior, that's also untrue. Okay, so that's my opinion. All right, so but let's switch back to what we're focusing on here. Okay, so most of Mary Harrington's book is focused on how it is that we're in this sort of place in Western civilization in which we have this sometimes very aggressive push to force agreement that there are no genders. It's just there could be thousands of them. And one of the things that Mary Harrington points out, and this takes me back to my point about all of you in strategic communication, and why the name of the book, Feminism Against Progress, is she rightly points out that most of the levers of power that are attached to the educational process and the enforcement process of are you doing what you're educated to do, are controlled by women. Teaching on the preparatory end, the educational, and then within companies, HR. These two fields are heavily dominated by women. And in Mary Harrington, who's a very smart thinker, she says, that there's a sort of priestess class, and currently they have the microphone, and that's just the way it works. What's the point? The point is that if you're interested in sort of getting, to the nub, to the heart of the matter, and saying, how did we get into this space? You need to look at the history specific to this gender of how it is they got together, organized for social change. That tendency to get together and organize has not gone away. It's simply shifted location. It used to be grounded in community, and this was the driving force behind much in the way of not-for-profit work. Okay, it has now changed and shifted, and that's what Neff and Moss are on about. Okay, all right, that's question number one. Question number, and Harrington's book is a very good read. I mean, a very smart thinker, Harrington. Okay. Question number two. Neff and Moss argue that the big three methods of Lean, Six Sigma, and TQM employed by not-for-profit companies are not the best way to promote innovation in nonprofits. Why? Okay. And then do you agree or disagree? Now, yes, inherent in that question is the assumption that what the bloody world Lean, Six Sigma, and TQM are, and if you didn't, that you needed to go out and find out. Okay, and these are efficiency programs that are used in the business world to get everybody focused in terms of maximum efficiency output and minimum drag and all of this sort of stuff. Okay, Taria, let's take a look at your answer. Neff and Moss argue that while Lean, Six Sigma, and Total Quality Management, and that's what TQM stands for, are effective for efficiency and quality control in for-profit sectors, these methods may hinder innovation. In not-for-profits, these approaches focus heavily on eliminating waste and maximizing efficiency, which can create rigid structures that discourage risk-taking and flexibility crucial for nonprofit innovation. Nonprofits often operate in a dynamic environment where adaptability, creativity, and mission-driven solutions are key. Excellent answer. And that's one of the things that I like about the not-for-profit sector is there's a lot of room for innovation and trying different things. And that has its upsides and its downsides. The reason that there is a lot of room, and here's the upside, that's also the downside, is that the not-for-profit sector is tremendously competitive and it's hard to stay alive. So, not-for-profits are often willing to try something different, try something out of the box to get a leg up on the competition to try to stay alive. The downside to the allowance of innovation in the not-for-profit sector is it's highly competitive and it's hard to stay alive. So if you work in the not-for-profit sector, you will find yourself, and you will meet others. You can go to conferences and stuff like this. People are switching jobs with considerable regularity. I mean, it's something like the 2 to 3 year, you've been working here long enough, it's time to move on cycle, or I'm hard pressed to think of someone that I know that's worked in the not-for-profit sector that doesn't have a story of the not-for-profit just sort of disappearing out from underneath them because they didn't meet their money targets and there was no money to pay the staff. Boom. So, if volatility, which allows innovation, does not appeal to you as an element of work, then not-for-profit is not the sector for you to be in. If volatility as an adjunct, an add-on to opportunity and the allowance for you to be creative and innovate appeals to you, not-for-profit, is the place for you. Okay. I want to recommend a book concerning the mismatch, between ideas for the for-profit sector and the not-for-profit sector, okay, and how sometimes they don't go well together. This book called Uncharitable by Dan Pallotta. Now look at this title, okay? And if you'd like, you could Google TED Talk, Dan Pallotta TED Talk, and you can get the TED Talk for this book, the much shorter version, because this thing is, I mean, what is it? It's like 300 pages, something like that. But it's a good read. Now, this book has been out. He has an updated version. Mine is from 2009. So it's been around for a while. He's updated it since. If you go to Dan Pallotta, he's got a website, danpallotta.com. You can find the book. All right. There are two benefits from reading this book. The first one is that Dan Pallotta gives you a history of how it is the not-for-profit sector evolved in the United States. And curiously, interestingly, one of the major driving factors was it was assumed that there was a certain distancing from the market from certain issues. I mean, they would quite, early on in the 18th century, the 1700s, and in the 19th century, it was agreed that there are some relationships. Business is just relationship. Communication is just relationship. Not-for-profit is function of business, just relationships. There are some sectors of human relationships that should be blocked off from market forces. Now, interestingly, back to the first book that I mentioned to you, Mary Harrington points out that one of those, and this was very much an Adam Smith, and even John Locke touches on this. One of those segments of human relationships that people quite conscientiously blocked off from market forces was the relationship between men and women and the trajectory towards marriage and raising children. They said that when you subject that kind of relationship to market forces, nothing good happens. And one of the arguments that she makes in her book is that's exactly what's going on now. As a society, as we moved further and further into this mediated communication, so it's just right up the alley for you as communication scholars, as we moved into this mediated space, like me talking to you right now through this video, I'm not, here in front of you. We moved into this mediated space. We, without thinking about it, more willingly accepted market forces to drive our interactions. So it was first buying online. Amazon was an early adopter. We go, oh, well, okay. Things that people would just do, they would insist on an experience in a brick and mortar that is actually going and looking and touching the thing. They're like, well, I don't need to. I mean, Amazon started out just selling books. That was the first gig that, Jeff Bezos had. He was selling out of his garage where he started this whole bloody company. And then they started to move into physical items that normally people would want to handle. They had a physical, a contactual relationship with the item. But they forgo that. They said, no, I don't need that. I can do it through a mediated space. And then it was communication through a mediated space. And then it was relationships like Match.com through a communicated space. And Mary Harrington makes the point that the overall effect is to apply market forces, swipe left, swipe right, and turn the crucial aspect of relationship, meeting one another and getting to know one another, into just another transactional occurrence, just another thing in the market, and it's not been good. Dan Pallotta gives you the history that within American society, there was an understanding that there were certain things that shouldn't be subject to the transactional nature of the market. And one of them, or two of them, in addition to relationships between the sexes, another one was relationships between those who could help and those who needed help. That you should not subject that interaction to market forces. Now, Dan Pallotta likes this, and then he says, there's some problems with it. And if you watch the TED Talk and you read in the book, this is one of the problems is in blocking off the not-for-profit work, the not-for-profit sector from market forces. they also blocked off not-for-profit work from market tools like advertising. And the book can be a little whiny at times, all right, but he makes his overall points are well taken, and that is, look, in the not-for-profit world, it's almost considered just like, you just don't spend money on things that don't directly go to the problem. So you brag to your donors, well, we spend 99 cents of every dollar to feed a child. Okay, great. That's what this not-for-profit is there for, to feed kids. Fine, hunky dory. But what if? See, because Pallotta asked this question. What are you ultimately trying to do here? Are you trying to make the donor feel good by saying 99 cents of your buck goes to feeding the child? Or are you trying to feed as many children as possible? And what if instead of 99 cents of every dollar, you said 70 cents of every dollar went to feed the child? Okay. And then 29 cents went to advertising to get more money to feed more children. And in blocking out that chunk of money, the 29 cents, that still leaves you the penny left over to get you to 99. Okay. That you raised more money and you fed more children than if you just gave 99 cents of every dollar to feed the children. Wouldn't that be good? But Pallotta points out that in this sort of mental conceptual framework that we have concerning not-for-profits, that is no bueno. He doesn't like that, and I tend to agree with him. Okay. Question number 3. In chapter 3, Neff and Motz present innovation as a strategy for success. Do you agree or disagree that innovation makes a good strategy? Please explain. Sean, I highly agree. Innovation, whether in not-for-profit, for-profit or not-for-profit, organization, it is always will be a good strategy by taking chances and trying something different than what is known to be good, allows for the potential of success. And this is one of these, what do you think kinds of questions. And I would tend to agree with you, Sean. Now, look, it doesn't always work out. Okay. A significant part, and this is why as communication majors, you should be very interested. In not-for-profit, in the not-for-profit sector. That doesn't mean you're going to go work there, but understand what's going on, because at the heart of not-for-profit work is the proposition that I'm asking, say I'm the not-for-profit and you're the supporter. I'm asking you to do two things that are not asked of you in the for-profit sector. You ready for these? Two fundamentally different things. Number one, I'm asking you to take your disposable income, and this is your disposable income, your income after you pay your bills, after what you expend your money on that's really disposable, but you think is essential, like going out for drinks or watching Netflix, and then to take some of that money and give it to me, the not-for-profit. So that's different. I'm asking for the disposable of your disposable income. Just remind me of a funny story. That point, I was in Africa. I was in an African country, Botswana, once, and I was talking with a guy, and we were at a conference, and he was actually from Sudan, and he was telling me about how terrible the drought was there, and asked because I said, well, I grew up in the Western United States, and he said, oh yeah, I've heard that they've had droughts there. Do you have droughts? And at that time I was living near Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm like, no, the place I live in, we have so much water that Kansas City is known as the city of fountains because it has a lot there. So I said, we have so much water in the major city that I live near, that they decorate with it. And then he was like, oh yeah. And I just started thinking about it. And I thought, what a weird juxtaposition that we, living where I live, we have so much water that we decorate with it. Then we allow animals that we have no need to eat, live in it, like the ducks swim around. Oh yeah. And then we turn our backs on the whole thing, throw the money in it that we don't want, and wish for a better life. Okay. Now that's a little weird. There's a certain dose of self-deprecating humor that goes with that. But anyway, So that's the first thing that's different. Sorry for the segue. That's the first thing that's different when you're in the not-for-profit is you're asking for money that's the disposable of disposable. But here's the second thing that's different. All right. In the for-profit sector, I'm asking for your money to give you goods or services that are going to directly benefit you, even if it's discretionary. Like, do you really need Netflix or no? Okay. I don't know. Is there going to be an extra charge for this, to watch Mike Tyson fight Jake Paul coming up on Netflix? I don't know. Or it's just, if you have Netflix, you're going to get to see it. All right. So I'm asking you, whether it's for a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, I'm asking you for your money to give you something that benefits you. In the not-for-profit sector, I'm asking you for your money to give something to someone else for a benefit. You're not getting the clean water. They are. You're not getting the cleft palate surgery. They are. So there's this additional layer that goes in there that's different for profit. And, being clever about it can help. Now, it doesn't always work. Okay. Because at the heart of it is the idea that you're going to have to persuade someone through some means, hook or crook, to do something for somebody else. And that's where the communication puzzle becomes very interesting and a little more complicated. Okay, and this is one of those, what do you think questions. All right, finally, question number 4, according to Neff and Moss, which drives which, innovation or technology? Emily, Neff and Moss discuss how innovation and technology truly cannot be parsed out, identifying which one is more important or which came first. Absolutely right. Okay. The author points that technology can be leveraged in your not-for-profit and is essential to appeasing I don't know. I mean, I'm out of coffee even, and I still can't read. I mean, I had a whole cup and I still can't read. Is essential to appearing as a resource for all stakeholders. Additionally, technology can be a resource in innovation and how innovation can drive new uses of technology. Absolutely right. And on that, note, remember our readings with Hoke et al. And how important things like idea dating is. Okay, now you might be saying, well, that's not the same as technology, Dr. Gardner. What are you talking about? Expose yourself as a thinker, as you develop as a highly skilled communication professional. Expose yourself to other ways of seeing things that spark ideas about how to do the things that you're responsible for. So whether that comes from looking at technology, using it, going to art museums, listening to different sorts of music, being out in nature, noticing structure, noticing pattern, noticing relationships, noticing, and in the not-for-profit world, this is king or queen, whichever you like, noticing cause and effect. If this is done, this happens. Because if you don't pay attention to that, and if you make assumptions about if you trot out this will come from it, and you're wrong, you're dead in the water. Okay, that is the worst thing in the world for not-for-profit. So don't do that. Idea date, look at new technologies, use technologies as a means by which to think about innovating in what you do, whether you're working in the not-for-profit sector or not, okay, as communication professionals. All right. That's a half an hour and some change. So that's enough for today. Okay, everybody, keep working on your papers. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me. I'm here during my office hours per usual. All right. Remember, the way to study for the final exam is to review the discussion questions, so you're going to do fine. Okay. Enjoy these last couple of weeks. I will see you on Canvas. Okay. Have a very, very blessed week. Bye-bye.